My name is Scarlett, and I'm in my early 30s. I work as a marketing manager, a job that requires attention to detail, a lot of research, and the ability to navigate complex situations. Little did I know, those skills would become far more valuable in my personal life than they ever were in the corporate world. For years, my life felt like I was tethered to a sinking ship, a ship called family. I didn't live with my parents, Robert and Sarah, but a significant portion of my income went directly to keeping their household afloat. It had started gradually after Robert's business failed spectacularly about 10 years ago, leaving them with a mountain of debt he refused to responsibly manage. Mom, Sarah, worked part-time at the local library, but it barely covered groceries. So I stepped in. It began with covering the internet and electricity, then expanded to the mortgage supplement they couldn't make, their car insurance, even helping them consolidate and pay down their rampant credit card debt. It wasn't just bills. It was sending cash when they were short, buying them essentials they claimed they couldn't afford, sometimes even paying for their car repairs. It added up to a staggering amount each month, more than I paid for my own modest apartment. I didn't resent it at first. They were my parents, after all. There was this sense of obligation, a hope that maybe if I helped them get back on their feet, they'd learn to manage. But that never happened. Robert developed an almost Olympic level of entitlement. My contributions weren't seen as help. They were expected. He'd complain about what I didn't pay for, or criticize me for having my own savings while they struggled. Sarah, bless her heart, just wrung her hands and looked anxious, never challenging Robert, always defaulting to whatever he said needed to happen. My younger brother, Caleb, who was still in college, saw it all. He was grateful for my help, mostly because it kept the peace and kept the lights on, but I knew he worried about me, about how much I was sacrificing. The breaking point came on a gloomy Sunday afternoon visit. I was just sitting there, making small talk, trying to ignore the tension that always seemed to hang in the air in their living room. Robert started talking, circling like a shark. He mentioned an incredible can't-miss investment opportunity that would change everything. Then came the ask. He needed a lump sum, $50,000, immediately. No collateral, no solid plan, just his word and a glint of desperation in his eye. I took a deep breath. This wasn't new, but the amount was audacious. I looked at him, at Mom sitting there looking nervously at her hands, at Caleb across the room, watching me with wide eyes. I spoke calmly, deliberately. Dad, I can't do that. $50,000? That's a huge amount. You know, I'm saving for a down payment on a place of my own, building my retirement fund. I help out significantly every month already. The mortgage, utilities, insurance, the credit cards. It's a lot. I paused, trying to make him understand without sounding accusatory. I can't jeopardize my entire future for a risky investment. Not right now, maybe not ever. That's when the switch flipped. Robert's face turned red. He slammed his hand on the armrest of his chair. Risky? This isn't risky, Scarlett. This is family. This is about helping your father when he needs you. After everything we've done for you. He stood up, towering a bit, his voice rising. You think you're so high and mighty with your fancy job and your savings? You come in here, dispensing your little handouts, judging us. You're a burden. A constant reminder of what I don't have. If you're not going to step up and be family when it matters, then maybe we don't need you in our lives at all. Get out. Get out of my house. My heart pounded, but a cold wave washed over me. A burden? After years of carrying their weight? The irony was suffocating. Sarah gasped, her eyes darting between us, but she didn't say a word. Caleb flinched, his face a mask of shock and anger. I stood up slowly. I didn't shout back. My voice was quiet, but steady. Okay, Dad. If that's how you feel. I walked towards the door, grabbed my coat. I turned back for a second, looked at Caleb, and gave him a small, tight nod. He was the only one I cared about leaving behind. Then I opened the door and walked out, leaving them in the silence that followed Robert's outburst. The drive away was silent, but my mind was racing. The hurt was deep, the words burden echoing in my ears. But beneath the hurt, a cold resolve began to set. If they didn't want my charity, If they saw my support as interference, if they wanted me out of their lives, fine. I wouldn't just leave. I would sever the cords completely. All of them. I drove straight to my friend Claire's apartment. Claire and I had been friends since college, and she was one of those rare, genuinely good people. When I showed up at her door, looking pale and shaky, she didn't pepper me with questions. She just pulled me into a hug and said, "Hey, you look like you need a place to land. Come in. Stay as long as you need." Her simple kindness was a balm. Once I was inside, sitting on her couch with a mug of tea, the story came spilling out. Claire listened, her expression moving from concern to shock to quiet fury. When I finished, the silence hung heavy for a moment. Then I looked at her and said, "I'm done, Claire. I can't do it anymore." He called me a burden. After everything. If they don't want my help, they won't have it. Any of it. Over the next few hours, with Claire sitting quietly nearby, I went online. I logged into account after account. The utility companies, electricity, gas, water. The internet provider. Their car insurance policy, which I paid monthly. The bank account for the consolidated credit card debt I was helping them manage. The mortgage company where I sent that extra payment each month. One by one, I systematically removed my banking information. I canceled recurring payments. For some services, I simply removed myself as an authorized payer, knowing that if my name wasn't attached, the bills would fall solely on them. I even found the login for a streaming service account they used constantly, linked to my old credit card, and removed the payment method there too. As I clicked confirm on each change, a wave of emotions washed over me. Relief, defiance, sadness. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming my own life, my own financial future, from people who saw me as a resource to be exploited, not a person to be loved and appreciated. I took screenshots of old statements, showing years of payments from my accounts to their bills. I knew Robert would deny everything, twist the story. I needed proof. Later that evening, I got a text from Caleb. "Are you okay? Dad's really bad. Yelling nonstop that you just left. Mom's crying." I texted him back, trying to sound strong. "I'm safe, Ty. I had to leave. I just couldn't stay there anymore after what he said." Caleb's reply came quickly. "I know. He was awful. What happens now? With everything?" I hesitated, then decided to be honest, at least partially. "I can't keep supporting them, Caleb. They made their choice. Things are going to change." I worried about him, stuck in the middle of it all, but I also knew he needed to see the reality of their parents without me shielding them from the consequences. A few quiet days passed at Claire's. I went to work, came home, tried to establish a sense of normalcy. The silence from my parents was unnerving, but I knew it wouldn't last. It was the calm before the storm. The first signs of trouble came via Caleb's texts. Lights flickered, then went out, he messaged one evening. Then, "Internet's dead now too." Robert's rage, he reported, was escalating from general anger to frantic desperation. Mom's texts started soon after, not apologetic, but full of panicked questions and demands. "Scarlett, what's happening? The power is out. Your father is furious. Why aren't the bills paid?" I answered one of her calls, steeling myself. Her voice was shaky, accusing. "Scarlett, the power's out. The internet. We can't watch TV. The fridge is going warm. What did you do?" My voice was calm flat. "Mom, I stopped paying the bills I was covering. As you and Dad wanted, I'm no longer involved in your finances or your lives. That's the consequence." There was a stunned silence on the other end. Then a choked whisper, You can't just do that. This is our home." I closed my eyes for a second, remembering Robert's words. "No, Mom. According to Dad, it's not my home, and I'm a burden. I'm just following instructions. You and Dad will need to figure out how to manage on your own now." I hung up before she could respond. I felt a pang of guilt for Caleb, but none for them. The financial chaos at their house spiraled. Caleb's texts chronicled the descent. Arguments over candles, spoiled food, inability to use appliances. Robert's desperation grew. Then came the alerts. Suspicious login attempts on my primary bank account. Failed password entries on my email associated with several old household accounts. A notification from a utility company portal that someone tried to reset my password. My blood ran cold. Robert. I immediately texted Caleb. Is Dad using the computer? Is he trying to get into my accounts? Caleb's reply was quick and shaky. Yeah, he is. He's looking through Mom's old desk, trying different passwords. He's yelling about needing what's ours. Be careful, Scarlett. Cold fury replaced fear. He wasn't just angry. He was trying to steal from me or force my hand by regaining control of their bills through my accounts. I spent the next few hours systematically locking down my digital life. I changed every single password to something long, complex, and unique. I enabled multi-factor authentication on my bank, brokerage, primary email, social media, and even my work accounts. I reviewed security questions and ensured recovery emails/phone numbers were current and secure. It was a digital fortress I was building, layer by layer. It felt violating that he would try this, but also strangely empowering to know I had the skills to block him completely. The digital attacks subsided after I reinforced my security, but the feeling of being hunted remained. Robert was unpredictable, and I knew he wouldn't give up easily. I worried about what his desperation would lead him to next. Then, one afternoon, it escalated beyond the digital realm. I was working from Claire's apartment, just finishing up a video call, when a sudden, thunderous banging erupted from the hallway outside. It wasn't a polite knock. It was aggressive, violent pounding that rattled the door frame. Claire jumped, her eyes wide with alarm. What was that? My heart leaped into my throat. I crept to the peephole. My stomach clenched. It was Robert. His face was contorted with rage, red and blotchy. He was shouting, his voice muffled but audible through the door. Scarlett! Open this door. You think you can hide? You owe me. Get out here. Fear shot through me, but my mind stayed clear. He had found me. How? It didn't matter right now. I had to handle this. He's here, I whispered to Claire. She was already reaching for her phone, trembling slightly. Call the police, I said, my voice steady. I pulled out my own phone and started recording through the peephole, capturing his image and his shouting. While Claire dialed 911, I spoke through the door, my voice calm and amplified slightly by holding the phone near the wood. Dad, you are trespassing. You are disturbing the peace. You need to leave immediately. His pounding intensified. Disturbing? You think you can just walk away after everything? I have rights. Open this door. You forfeited any rights you think you had over me when you kicked me out and called me a burden, I stated, keeping my voice even. I am calling the police. If you don't leave, you will be arrested. His shouting became a roar. Police? You think you can use the police against your own father? I'm not going anywhere. The dispatcher's calm voice on Claire's phone was a lifeline. Officers are en route. Stay inside. Do not open the door. The wait felt like an eternity, filled only by Robert's furious pounding and yelling. Neighbors' doors remained shut, but I could sense them listening, peering through peepholes. Finally, the wail of sirens pierced the air, growing louder. Heavy footsteps thudded in the stairwell. A firm knock on the door, authoritative voices. Police. Open up. I unlocked the multiple locks and opened the door a crack, stepping back quickly with Claire. 2 officers stood there, confronting Robert. He immediately turned his rage on them. She's my daughter. I have a right to see her. Sir, you're causing a disturbance. You need to leave, an officer said, his tone firm but measured. I'm not leaving until she talks to me. Robert lunged forward suddenly, trying to push past the officers towards me. They reacted instantly, blocking him. Sir, you need to calm down. Step back. He struggled against them, still shouting, she owes me. She can't do this. As the officers restrained him, maneuvering him away from the door, he twisted his head to look at me, his eyes wild. You will regret this, Scarlett. You will pay for betraying your family. I stood there, my heart pounding, but my gaze steady. I owe you nothing, I said, my voice clear and strong enough for him, the officers, and maybe even the listening neighbors to hear. You chose to push me out. These are your consequences. The cold click of handcuffs echoed in the hallway. Robert continued to shout as the officers led him away, his words fading down the stairwell. Claire closed and locked the door behind them, leaning against it, breathing heavily. "Are you okay?" she whispered. I nodded, wrapping my arms around myself. "Yeah. Just didn't think he'd actually show up here." Claire looked shaken. "You did the right thing calling the police. You absolutely cannot stay here anymore, Scarlett. It's not safe." I knew she was right. A few days later, after the shock had slightly subsided, Caleb texted me again. His message was hesitant. "Hey, you know that antique desk from Grandma you kept here? I think it's gone." My stomach dropped. That desk was a valuable family heirloom, solid oak, intricately carved. I had stored it at their place because my apartment was too small. I had photos of it. I immediately suspected the worst. I didn't confront Sarah yet. Instead, I began my research. Using my marketing manager skills, I started checking local online marketplaces, antique dealer websites, and even pawn shop databases within a radius of their house. I used keywords and image searches. It didn't take long. I found a listing on a local online classified site from a few days ago. A desk matching the description, asking for a surprisingly low price, but definitely the desk. The listing was from a generic account, but it confirmed my fear. They hadn't just let me leave, they had started selling off my property. I took multiple screenshots, saved the listing URL, and found old photos I had of the desk from different angles. I also reviewed my bank statements from the past few weeks. I had given Sarah a few $100s in cash the month before for a supposed property tax payment she claimed was due. Had they used that money, then resorted to selling my things? Armed with my evidence, I decided I needed to confront Sarah directly, document her response, and then go to the police. I drove to the old house while Robert was likely out. Caleb confirmed he wasn't there. I still had an old key. Walking into the living room was jarring. The space where the desk had sat for years was empty, leaving a clean patch on the dusty carpet. I found Sarah in the kitchen. She looked startled to see me. "Scarlett, what are you doing here?" I held up my phone, showing her the photos of the desk and the online listing. My voice was calm but firm. "Mom, where's the desk? I know it's gone. I found it online." Sarah's face crumpled immediately. She started wringing her hands, looking guilty and panicked. "Oh, Scarlett, your father. He said we needed the money. Things are so hard right now. We thought since you weren't living here, you didn't need it anymore. It's family property anyway." The excuses tumbled out, a mix of playing the victim and trying to justify the theft. We sold it. For money." "You stole my property, Mom," I stated, cutting through her excuses. "That desk belonged to Grandma. It was mine. You sold it for money." My internal thoughts were a mix of disbelief and cold anger. She wasn't just passive, she was an active participant in taking from me. "And that cash I gave you last month for the property tax? Did that go to bills or something else?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. We needed it." I took a deep breath, feeling a profound sadness for the mother I wished I had. "Mom," I said, my voice quiet but carrying the weight of years of disappointment. "You taught me to protect what's mine. Seems you forgot your own lesson." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police. I'm filing a report for theft." Her head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. "No. Scarlett, you can't. I'm your mother. How can you do this? How could you steal from your daughter?" I countered, holding her gaze. "I forgave a lot over the years. This is stealing. And there are consequences." I dialed 911 and explained the situation factually, a report of stolen property from a residence, mentioning the item, my ownership, and my suspicion of who was involved, linking it to the previous domestic disturbance call involving my father. When the police arrived, I presented my evidence. The photos of the desk, the online listing, proof of my relationship to the residents, and my previous report. I explained clearly that I wanted to press charges. Sarah was questioned, and she was a mess, contradicting herself, trying to minimize her role, but ultimately unable to deny the desk was gone and sold. An officer explained the process. They would file a formal theft report, investigate, and charges could be pressed depending on the value and findings. A few days after filing the theft report, just as I was starting to think about finding a new place to live, I received a text message from an unknown number. It was short and chilling. "You think you've won? Family doesn't abandon family. You'll regret this. Pay what's owed." My spine stiffened. The message wasn't just angry. It felt calculated, slightly ominous. Pay what's owed. Whose debt was that referring to? Robert's? I immediately checked the county's public online arrest records. My heart pounded when I saw it. Robert was out on bail. The date was recent. He'd been released within the last day or two. I called Caleb immediately. He whispered when he answered. "Joanna? Oh, Scarlett. Yeah, Dad's back. He was released yesterday." "Who posted bail, Caleb?" "Oh, Frank. Frank Miller? You know, that guy Dad used to hang out with, the one with the reputation." Frank Miller. Robert's unsavory acquaintance. I knew Robert owed Frank money from one of his failed ventures. Frank bailing him out wasn't altruism, it was an investment. Frank expected to get his money back, and he likely saw Scarlett, the successful daughter, as the source. The pay what's owed message clicked into place. Frank was likely involved now. "Caleb, has Dad said anything?" "Anything weird?" "Yeah, he's been on the phone a lot, talking about getting what's mine. And he's been muttering about you. Like really angry stuff. Saying you betrayed him and you'll see what real problems are." Caleb's voice was full of worry. "That text, was that from him?" "Maybe," I said, my mind racing. "Or maybe Frank." "Listen, Caleb, be careful. Keep your head down. If anything happens, anything at all, you call me or the police immediately. Got it?" "Got it, Scarlett. You too. Stay safe." The threats weren't just Robert's rage anymore. There was another element. Someone tied to Robert's debts and his shady world, who now saw me as a potential piggy bank or leverage point. Claire's apartment, bless her, suddenly felt very exposed. Robert knew where she lived. Frank might be able to find out too. "Claire," I said that evening, my voice tight. "I need to move. Again. As soon as possible." Claire didn't argue. She looked worried but nodded immediately. "Okay. Who can you stay with? Do you have anyone else?" I thought about it. I had my network, but who could I impose on again? Then I remembered Anna. Anna and I weren't as close as Claire, but she was a kind colleague who had offered me a spare room months ago when I was just complaining about apartment hunting, saying, "Anytime you need a place to crash, my door's open." I called Anna, feeling a little awkward explaining the condensed version of the past few weeks. Anna listened patiently. When I finished, there was a brief silence. Then she simply said, "Oh my God, Scarlett. That's awful. Of course you can stay here. My spare room is empty. Bring your stuff over anytime. You don't need to explain anything else. Just focus on being safe." Her uncomplicated generosity brought tears to my eyes. I packed quickly, efficiently. Just the essentials, my laptop, important documents, a few changes of clothes. The rest I would figure out later. It felt surreal to be packing up again, leaving another place that had felt like a temporary haven. Before I left Claire's, I double-checked her door locks, made sure her building's security was up to par, and gave her a quick, heartfelt hug. "Thank you, Claire, for everything. I'll stay in touch." Driving across town to Anna's, I felt exhausted but resolute. I wasn't running away. I was strategically relocating, protecting myself and my friends from people who were becoming increasingly volatile and dangerous. I had screenshots of the threats, documentation of the theft, and 2 police reports filed. The legal process was moving, however slowly. As I pulled up to Anna's building, my phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Running won't help. Family ties can't be cut. See you around, Scarlett." I didn't reply. I simply took a screenshot and, along with the previous messages, emailed them directly to the police detective who had taken my theft report. In the body of the email, I stated clearly, "These are escalating threats I am receiving. I believe they are from my father, Robert, who is now out on bail, and possibly someone he owes money to. I feel unsafe and am taking precautions by moving." Pulling my suitcase from the trunk, I looked up at Anna's building. It was just an apartment building like any other, but right now, It represented safety, a boundary, a place where I could rebuild without constant fear or demands. The fight wasn't over. There were legal battles ahead, the potential for more threats, more attempts by Robert and perhaps Frank to get at me or my money. But I had faced their worst. I had been called a burden, kicked out, hacked, threatened, had my property stolen, and been physically confronted. And I hadn't crumbled. I hadn't given in. I had stood my ground, used my wits, sought help, and involved the authorities. I was no longer the invisible anchor, silently holding up a sinking ship. I was the captain of my own life, navigating the storm, charting my own course. And for the first time in a long time, despite the fear, I felt a fierce, quiet strength that they could never take away.